I felt like they didn't trust the woman birthing. Or perhaps there are not so many women that give themselves the possibility of accessing their deep knowing, deep trust, their deep instinct and intuition, that we give this power away to others to do it for us. And those others that do it for us would do it the best way that they can in the way they know. And this is exactly what I didn't want for my baby or me.
Hello and welcome to Birth Voice, a series of conversations giving voice to the hidden dimensions of birth and with that of a woman. Here, we talk about birth, sexuality, pleasure, and shine light on the wise, wild, and innocently sensuous nature of being a woman. Birth Voice is brought to you by womenawakenings.com.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Birth Voice. Today, I will be sharing my birth story. It's been 1 year and 1 day. It's the 28th of October today. And I feel like I want to revisit my birth. I want to check in with the gifts that it gave me and how it shaped me a year later. And also feel like by revisiting it, I am honoring it and I'm keeping it close. Yeah, this is how it feels, that I'm keeping it hot close. This will be a solo episode. And I'm hoping that by sharing my story, I'm also going to inspire other women who are listening, whoever is listening, with what wants to be shared today about my birth. So, where do I start? I had decided, or life showed me, that I am going to be giving birth at home, right in this space where I am, in this room. And to be honest, I was not really absolute about that, even though when I started sharing that I was pregnant, people were like, "You're giving birth at home, right?" And I was like, "You know what? I don't know. I am open to see the path, knowing that my baby has a say in this as well." And also, it's the first time I am experiencing pregnancy, and it was not about like, will something happen bad that I will need to be at the hospital. It was more about, I don't know how I feel, and I'm a person that wants to test, feel, and decide. So this is exactly what I was doing in my pregnancy too. And the path led me to the fact that I wanted to give birth at home, right at my parents' house. um, yeah, so I moved to my parents' house. Somehow this was also part of a bigger plan. I now know this was because first I needed support through my pregnancy, and also I was thinking about postpartum. I wanted to experience postpartum in a way that I can be as supported as possible and to spend as much time as I could in bed with my baby, bonding and feeding him and recovering. So yeah, I moved here, and the other reason that I see now, it was like taking me back to my roots, to my parents' house, to deal with some rooted stuff that were in me that didn't need to be there anymore, especially now that I was becoming a mother. I didn't somehow, like, life didn't want me to pass this on or keep propagating the same patterns. For example, the relationship with my mom, or how it made me feel when I would hear my parents arguing, how that impacted me. And yeah, it was giving me space to clear my part of it and let it go, so I don't propagate that to my life later and to my children. So yeah, I prepared the room. I kind of prepared everything by the book, let's say, in the sense, like, this is my job. So I was like, I did everything that I was telling people to do as well. For example, I had different stations to birth. experience birthing. Like I had the birth pool. I was thinking I felt attracted to water, so I felt I would love to have the birth pool in case I need to feel supported by water. So I had that. I had, um, let's say, had spaces where I had pillows on the floor and um, my yoga mat. I had a waterproof cover on my bed, and yeah, things like that. I had a hot water bottle nearby, towels to keep my floor like protected from spillage. So that was a practical part. And then of course, the whole journey for me, it was less about the practical preparation because that was happening automatically. Like I knew what to do, what I needed. It was more about responding to what pregnancy was bringing up in me. So I already mentioned the patterns with my mother and my own childhood trauma, if you like, from inside of myself, but also birth specific fears that I had. And this was not just like sitting and asking myself, what am I afraid of? No, it was like as my journey of pregnancy was progressing, these things were showing up in me, and my work and preparation was to respond to it and to look at it, to open it completely and dive deep in it. Um, Birth preparation for me was about diving deep in it. And especially choosing to give birth at home meant I needed to really prepare for birth at home. And that meant that it was it was making me take the full responsibility for my choice, for my life, for my baby, for the experience that life was guiding me to. And that needed, yeah, this internal preparation more than anything. So, yeah, I would have subconscious fears that I didn't know I had, and they would just wake me up in the middle of the night. And I don't know if you've ever experienced something like this, but it's almost like when someone is throwing a tennis ball at you and it just doesn't stop, and you have to keep like fighting with the ball to hit it, and it just doesn't stop to give you a breath. So that's my mind like playing out the worst scenario of that specific fear and me needing to catch my breath. So I felt that the resolution of or the alchemizing of that fear was the process of playing it out completely. And sometimes it would be very practical, like search this, Google it, read, ask someone, or like leave it unresolved. It was one day I visited the chiropractor's office, and there was this midwife that was next door, and she listened to me saying what I was saying, and she responded, and I'm like, here it is, my answer. This is exactly what I needed. So by choosing to go inside my fears and letting them alchemize, it was preparing me. It was giving me access to a strength and kind of like a fortification of this sacred space that was happening inside of me and also was created outside of me to allow birth to happen. And I'd say the deepest thing I faced was death. What if my baby dies? And this is one of the things that first time I've heard a woman talking about this. Veronica, I interviewed her about her home birth, and she said the thing that I had to really deal with was death. And it really brought this clarity to me about if we really are here to bring life, we are here to also accept and look death in the eyes. Without death, we cannot have life. So they go hand in hand. And it can be really harsh to say to people, but somehow this was an initiation by itself to come down to, it's not really up to me. I'm doing my best to listen and follow where I'm brought at, and to take decisions that feel good to me about my birth, knowing that I'm guided also by my baby. And it's also not up to me. And this brought me into a very deep communion with the divine, if you like, God, however you can resonate with what I'm saying. But for me, it's like the higher aspect of life that is running through every being, the unmaterialized form of divinity. And yes, I'm like, I am here to be a channel for this life of another being that also has a life for his own, and he's here to live. And it also brought me into very deep communion and connection with the soul of my child that was himself was always telling me, I'm here to stay. I am here to stay. I've got a life to live. So that was giving me such a deep, and in moments that this came, it gave me such a deep confirmation for different reasons and different I always thought I may lose a baby, for example, in the beginning because I had miscarried before, and I had this fear. So the connection to him was always reassuring me that I'm here to stay. And yet it came again at the end of pregnancy when I had to revisit this whole idea about me choosing and me being responsible and all that, versus the whole um, picture of life and death and who chooses, you know? So I was really certain and really prepared for him coming into this world. I knew he would come to this world. So, you know, choosing this non very conventional way to birth, like to free birth my baby, I had to face a lot of stuff that I didn't even know I had inside of me. Yeah, and especially the part of my ego that wanted to make things right and thought it was responsible. Well, I am to a certain extent, but there is no doubt when I feel in connection to my choice. It's like, this is it. And even if something happens, I still feel so connected to my choice that, yeah, inevitability, basically. So so what I did was I took my fears and I made affirmations, which was more like a mental thing to have. For example, some of that would be, I can have a home birth without harming me or my baby. Um, a joyful birth is possible. Failing in birth is an illusion because I thought I would fail. I thought I would not do things right. So I was taking this and making them into affirmations. And I had a few of those, like, what if I tear and things like this? What if I come to face a medical reality that I don't have anybody to trust? And yeah, through this journey, there was this other need to have someone to trust. I literally wrote down, I want to find someone who does what I do in birth. And by that, I meant someone who really knows birth medically, scientifically, but also knows the other side. And this is what actually brought a lot of tears and pain that I could not find anyone. I could not find someone that had this view of birth that felt good in me to my bone. Um, Grounded, but also knowing the other side, spiritual side of birth, the metaphysical side of birth. And I did not find that. I had support my partner was there, and the people that I chose to be next to me, two dear friends, were chosen also through the same energy, the same way. Like, I chose them because I felt I was not just the only one choosing. It was such a synchronicity how they both came to my birth and how I felt the moment I saw them through pregnancy. Like, you gotta be at the birth. It was like that deep knowing. It's beyond words, but I know that if you are listening and you experience something like that, you know what I mean. So yeah, that was a part of dealing with the things that were coming up. And there was a point, the final countdown, let's say, where it was a whole week of wow, being thrown into the shit, into the shadows, into like so many things that were popping up every single day and needed me to access my power. And in that, I remember going through this deep journey within myself where the contemplation with my soul was gave me this clear guidance. It's like, it sounds like you're preparing for war because you're trying to fight what your mind is telling you, playing out all scenarios, all possibilities. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Where is the girl I knew? Where is this powerful being that can just sit into the midst of chaos and find her stillness and also like overcome those barriers of the mind? I was like, wow, this is playing out hardcore. But this reminder to really connect to me and to find that space in me where my mind, my body, and my emotions were not in war, but in absolute presence and connection and embodiment of my being. So I was just reminded of that. And also the the finite point here, it was like, are you preparing to prevent death, or are you preparing to welcome life? Am I preparing to preserve life or to embrace it? And I tasted the fine line between these two ways. Am I preparing to prevent death, or am I preparing to welcome life? It's a very fine difference between the two, but it made a huge difference inside of me. And also, again, birth was it was an invitation for me to surrender to the mystery, as birth is the ultimate teacher of the mystery. And in Greek, mystery means mysterio, is like a container for a ceremony in which the mystery is unfolding. So the mystery is divinity itself, is life, the divine. And this is how I was preparing for a ceremony and not war. That was really, really sat with me. And I wrote a prayer and I've sent it out to the people that were going to be there. How we are all anchored in our breath, and I'm ready to open and just let things happen. And they did. It was so clear to me that day that my baby had his own agenda, that I was not doing something to prevent birth, but all I could do was to open and really, really let go, really trust this mystery that is birth. And I feel like that's a big one. This is one of the greatest opportunities to access that through pregnancy and surrender to it in preparation for birth. Because in reality, in birth, this is what we are doing. If there is something to be doing, I was just in deep presence, in deep communion with me and the happenings inside, allowing my body to be taken by it. Yeah, so getting out of the way completely as much as possible during pregnancy is how I prepared. And that final week was hit me a lot. But finally, I had my first waves coming, and they felt absolutely incredible. It felt like there were these waves of energy running through, starting from my womb and running through my whole body. Felt orgasmic. And I was like, is this birth? Bring it on. I love it. And they lasted for about an hour. And then they stopped. I went to sleep. It was really late in the evening. And then they stopped. And I was devastated because I felt like, oh my God, I thought we were going somewhere and then we're not. But yet there was another invitation to surrender deeper. And then I was just waiting. I remember I received a few visits from some dear friends that gave birth at home as well. And it was such a big confirmation, such a big, like, I can do this. I'm doing it. There are other women that did this before me. Like, I can do this. And about a week later, my waves came. It was about 2 in the afternoon, and I felt the same, like, euphoric waves coming up, starting from my womb. And I was like, they're not stopping. There is another one coming. And I waited a bit, and then another one came. I was like, there is another one coming. And then another one came, and another one came. And I was like, this is it. I knew it inside me. This was it. And I recorded a video on that day, just with the amount of gratitude that I felt for my body and for birth that is here, because it felt like it sat there. It's like, yes, this is it. So I was just going with it. And to be honest, my mind started going away, which is a natural thing because the hormones start kicking in. So I called my partner. I told him, birth started, but take your time, come home in your own time. So it was just me and him at the house. My parents left. Yeah, that was a decision that they're not going to be here when I was birthing. So they were away for a week, and that was like, yeah, waiting for birth. And yeah, so he came, and I think we had dinner. I cooked this really nice curry, and we had dinner, and then I went to bed. I just like keep rolling with it. I went to bed. And I remember taking the bag of all the wishes that my friends and my circle of dear women community gave to me, all their messages, and I read them one by one. And I received this power. And then I just like went to bed. And I did not really sleep because since my waves started, they were coming one by one by one, every 4 minutes. So they were like really regular from the very beginning. So I was not really sleeping, but I went to bed with my partner who was next to me, and then we woke up in the morning. Or he woke up in the morning. I really don't remember much because I was in this other space in my head. I just remember that my my waves started. I was having waves the whole night. And then it was morning, and I remember waking up and making love with him. And this was one of the most amazing lovemaking times that we've had together because, yeah, I just felt different. It felt there was so much life going through me in that moment. And it was such a beautiful way to share it with him. It just naturally came. My libido was increasing the last weeks of pregnancy. And yeah, we made love. And then I had breakfast. I kept having waves every 4, but they were really beautiful. They were so beautiful. I was so happy. I was over the moon. And at one point, I told him, "You know what? You can tell the girls to come because I don't want to think of when to call them. I want to totally let go of like having to do something. You tell them that I'm in labor, and I like this word actually, labor. I was birthing, and they can come whenever they want, that I was ready for them." So I think around at some point, maybe lunchtime, they came, and I was in this space of like high. I was deep high. And it was so beautiful to share this space actually with them because I thought I was going to be really meditative, but I was actually not. I was in this deep space. I was tripping. That's how it felt. It felt really psychedelic. At the same time, I was like going out of the wave and I was laughing. I was saying jokes. My partner started playing the guitar at one point, which was so beautiful. And yeah, so that was a whole day of waves and was kept going. It was kept going. And then it started getting darker. So it was sunset time. And that's when I started feeling more intense waves. And I felt somehow I was kept going with them and kept riding them with my breath and my movement. And there was a point that I felt that this kind of pain was not, or intensity sensation on my coccyx was not normal. And the moment I felt that, I don't remember if I had the awareness of it. The next thing I remember was I wanted to go in the shower. I saw how the hot water was really helping me. So I said, "You know what? This is really intense. I think I want to go in the pool." So I went in the pool, and the water was not at the right temperature, which makes me realize how important the temperature is. Even if I like cold showers, I love like cold plunging and stuff, but in that moment of birth, the temperature has to be right. Like it felt so no. This was another thing. My body was always like so clear to the needs, and everything my senses was receiving was so clear. Yes, no, less, more. Um, yeah, very, very clear. So the mind was not really there. I was totally in it, in this trance of birth. And the intensity was taking me deeper. Yeah, I went in the pool and it kind of felt like not right to be in there because the water was cold, it was getting colder. So I asked for the kettle, like to bring some more hot water, but the sound was too much for me. So it totally took me away. So I said to everybody, just please go out. I need to, yeah, I needed to be with myself. And somehow I felt I wanted to use self pleasuring. Now, this was an ancient tool that women have been using, and my being always knew it. I have not read it anywhere, but I sometimes shared it with women. I know there's a whole movement about orgasmic birth, but this has always been my way, my internal way to. I wanted to try it, let's say, to see how it felt neutralizing pain with pleasure. But somehow it felt so excruciating. The pain was down in my coccyx, and I knew that when you feel this pain on your coccyx, like, and you want to poop, sensation, but also pain on my coccyx is like you're getting closer. But I did not feel I was getting closer. So anyway, I tried the pleasure, and it felt like I couldn't sit straight. I needed to be with my pelvis up, and that I needed to self pleasure through the contraction and in between contractions to let it be useful. And yeah, it was interesting because in that moment I realized how important it is to feel safe and, yeah, safe in birth. I told everybody to go outside, and I told them to go downstairs. I had no idea what time it was. I only knew that it was intense. And so in that moment, I kind of felt that there was something not right because it was not working. And I don't know if it was not working also because I didn't have someone outside of me who could see what's going on, not just the the medical part. So the medical part was that my baby was not coming in an optimal position. And interestingly, when I start feeling like there's something not okay, or not okay, but it felt like it was not the optimal way. There was something blocking, like that's how it felt in me physically, but also I felt it intuitively that it was something blocking. I had a thought or an awareness, a memory of a birth that I was, and the baby was coming back to back. So this lady was in excruciating pain. And the imprint I had of that, it was that she was in a clinic and she took this pain relief. So this was a scenario that gave me the awareness that perhaps my baby's coming this way. I left it, but then the pleasure thing didn't work. And I think I haven't had anybody here to tell me try again with pleasure, or like to guide me in this way of allowing more pain, like to dilute pain with pleasure, or that sensation, or find that place inside of me. I feel like maybe a part of me got really overwhelmed by the intensity of it, and also I feel like I had a fear there where I was thinking that I would ruin birth, that I started feeling from the moment where the sounds started and the kettle situation that, oh my God, there's so much noise and I'm not in my deep relaxation. And I somehow lost it. Then I found it again. When I say it, I mean the connection to me. But reflecting now, I feel like I would love to have had someone to support me in getting back in myself. Because I somehow see now that I got into this loop of my mind, which can happen. I mean, it surprised me because I am not usually like that, but birth is not a usual situation. It's a very special one. And even if I support other women to birth when I'm birthing, when I was birthing, I could not have the same role. And I feel like that confused me. That didn't let me. Ah, step my foot on the ground and say, you know what, I'm going to find someone to support me. I feel like I did not know how important it was until I was there, which until afterwards, after I integrated everything actually, because right in the moment I was right in it and I was riding the waves really well. So I was really connected and really da, da, da. So anyway, the option of leaving the house was not there for me. So I kept going. I called people in again. It helped a lot to have a counter pressure on my pelvis. Literally every 3 to 4 minutes, I was asking them to come and put pressure on my pelvis because that was like lifting my pelvis, making more space for the baby that was not hitting my coccyx so bad. So yeah, it kept going through the night, and at one point, I said to them, I I feel like I'm reaching my limit. I cannot do it anymore. It was like the second night, and I said I want to call the midwife, which I had a midwife being on call for me, meaning if she was available and if I needed her, she would be there. So I called her. She was at her job, and like it was after 12 in the morning, and she said, "What you're describing sounds like your baby's coming back to back." So it kind of confirmed what I was already feeling. And yeah, she said, "Let me send you some positions." And when she did, I remember that moment was like really, time started feeling differently because I felt like I was waiting for her to send me something. But I kind of felt like it was also useless because I was following exactly what my body was saying. And actually, the positions that she sent me were exactly how my body wanted to be. This was beautiful to see. I remember another moment where I literally had my elbows down on the floor and my hips up. I was almost in like shoulder stand, but no, my legs were down and the people were pressing my pelvis. And I was like so thankful to the amount of yoga I did during pregnancy because I'm like, to be so strong to stand this, during a contraction wave. The other thing I remember, praying so deeply, the deepest I've ever prayed in my life, the deepest connection I've ever felt to the beyond me and my baby, connection to my baby. I was praying for my baby to turn. I was also praying for a break. Like I had these waves coming nonstop every 4 to 5 minutes. Um, I was not counting, but like when every time I was asking people, they were like, they're every 4 minutes. So that's how I know. Yeah. So I prayed so hard for a break and my body didn't give me a break, which is good. Thank you. Want birth to keep going. But it started feeling so intense in a sense that I could not stay in it anymore. It was already the second night. So yeah, at one point I called the gynecologist. She also confirmed. She said something that I really liked. She said, "Baby can turn, but it has to like go out of your pelvis and go back in again, especially if it's engaged." So I was like, "Let's keep going." And I kept going. I kept going up to one point where I was like, "I need to do something." I felt a blockage. And my internal self and my investment to my vision of having a home birth didn't want to be touched. Like I needed to keep that vision intact. Not just the vision, but also the experience. I wanted to have the experience of birthing at home and I wanted to feel that I did it. And I was also thinking, what about my career? What if, what would I say to women? but I didn't make it. If I leave, that means I didn't make it. That's how I was thinking in that moment. And this was hard because I felt like I was pulled in two directions. I felt I needed to do something, which I didn't know what it was. And at the same time, there was my ego protecting my vision and the investment of years of my work and my soul's mission to support women know that they can give birth. Well, what? At home? No, I now know it's not about the space. It's about how you feel when you are birthing and afterwards. And in a way that their babies come out in peace and love and connection. So, but anyway, in that moment, I couldn't see that. I could see that I'm not birthing at home because I'm not having the experience I need for my baby and for myself. So I called a friend who is a healer, energy healer, and very intuitive. And I was like, it was 3 a.m. at the moment I got my phone. I saw the time, it was 3 a.m. I was like, I need help. I don't know what to decide. Shall I go home? Shall I stay home or shall I go to a clinic? And she goes, I don't see there is a danger, but it feels like there is more energy going towards you leaving the house. So I felt that the instinctual part, the woman who was birthing and who was ready to go with the flow of the mystery, was ready to leave the house. And yet the other part of me was still holding. But I did follow the woman who was birthing. I followed my instinct. I followed the flow of the mystery, and I decided to go to a clinic that felt I worked there before and I knew the people, I knew the space, I knew how they, you know, how they flexible they are on me choosing what I want, even for things like vaginal examinations and like leaving me alone, because was really important for me. But I was persuaded I needed a pain relief because that was the only way I could make it. In my mind, that's what I was thinking, and that's why I was going, because I needed a pain relief. I mean, I needed a break. So I went there, and also I was scared to go in the car because I'm like, how can I do the car if I cannot hold myself here? The moment I literally decided to go, my contractions stopped. They stopped. So it gave me some time to get ready. I didn't have the bag ready. I didn't have this plan B, to go. I knew where I would go if I needed to go, if I wanted to go, but I didn't have a plan B, like no bag prepared, nothing. So everybody helped to just like take everything we could. And I just left how I was with my nightgown. And just before I got into the car, I had another wave and then nothing during the way. So it felt like this was a confirmation that I was doing the right thing, even if my ego was holding. I remember I had my eyes closed during the car ride and I was like, I always say that birth is about surrender. And it looks like surrender looks different for me. It meant more like surrendering the way I thought I would birth, the place I thought I would birth. So it was more like a mental let go, surrendering of my ego. This was the gift or the scenario that it needed for me to surrender deeper than I ever did. Yeah, let go of control, basically, completely and beyond anything that I ever did before. So I did. And the moment we reached there, my wave started again. So another confirmation. So we reached the clinic and I kept doing the same thing, really. They said, you want an examination? To say no. Okay. Would you tell me anything? And they're like, no. well, it may confirm what you're already saying about the position of your baby. I'm like, why have it then if he's not going to give me anything? Like, yeah, and they left. So that was good. And he kept going. I had a few contractions there, and then I needed to go to the toilet. So the toilet was really, really heavy before because sitting there meant wouldn't have anybody to press my pelvis, so I didn't have that pressure relief, and therefore I was like, oh my god, but I need to go. So I went there, and the wave comes, and I don't feel the same pain. So I'm like, wait a second, my baby turned. So my baby turned. I had a few waves in the clinic and then my baby turned. And I felt that because it was almost the pain was, let's say, 90%. And then it went to 50. So it felt like that relief. And I was in such joy and also sadness at the same time because I was like, why am I here then? Why am I here if my baby turned and if I can keep going like this? Why am I not at home? I cried a lot. I released and I found this strength to say to myself, you know what? You don't know why you're here, but you're here now. The end will show you why, but not now. Just keep going because you need to go. You need to keep going. You can't just like keep grabbing on this idea and this vision that you had and let your ego take over. You have to be in your body and just like birth. So they didn't have any measurement as to like how many centimeters I was dilated. So they were like, do you want to go upstairs to like a normal room? So I was like, no, wait a second. I was thinking like, I'm not birthing. It was already like approaching the third or yeah, the third morning. So yeah, the third morning was like, just go upstairs. I went upstairs and I kept breathing. I kept riding the waves. That's where I met so much of myself. I feel like I was brought to my absolute limits, to my physical limits. Like I remember thinking in that moment, how am I going to do it? And it's almost like you're crossing a bridge. That's how I felt like I'm crossing a bridge and I have to cross it by myself. There is nobody doing this for me. There is no way I'm going to ask them to just rip my stomach and take my baby out. This is not a way out. Actually, there was no way out but through. I had to go through that and I had to do it by myself. So I just kept going. Just like kept going. I kept going. I used all the power, the internal power I've ever accessed in my life and beyond. And I was very grateful for the people that were there for me. They became really special for my in my life. And my partner, he his presence there was absolutely magical. He was giving me this very solid, strong presence, always there. He left only a few times to, I don't know, go to the toilet or go outside for a walk. And the love, his touch was different than other people's touch. The bond that was building, the way that I looked at him, the way the kissing him felt was, yeah, like nothing else before. And yet I remember thinking, gosh, what if I want to have well, I said, I'm having another child because I'm feeling that I will have another child, a girl. How am I going to birth her after this? Like this is how big it was, the intensity and I was not counting times. I was in this trance space and I was left to birth on my own, even when let's say a midwife would come to do her job, like to check on the baby. The shifts of the midwives were changing, by the way. They changed like 3 times. And there was a moment that was hilarious because the lady said, I will be here until for this many hours. And I'm like, I just looked at her and said, are you counting in hours? I'm counting in contractions. So it felt like the hours was out of my planet, out of where I was in that moment. Anyway, I was wearing my blindfold and I had my earplugs on, my noise canceling headphones, and I felt very cocooned. And I did not need to get out of there for a long time. I was just there on the ball. But I remember this feeling that I really needed to sleep. I haven't slept for like, it was it was the third night I had not slept. And I tried to lie down, but it felt really painful lying down. So I wanted to get up again, and it just felt like my nervous system was reaching its limits, that I could not rest. It was it was intense. But there were a few things that I would tell myself if I was there as a doula, and that would be lie down even if it feels uncomfortable, because it really supports the opening. Because, I always say follow your body, but there are just there's just one exception that I would say to a woman, um, where it seems that it doesn't follow your body because it's more painful. But yeah, I would say to myself, lie in this position, hold, breathe in it as much as you can. And when you cannot do it anymore, just change position. But yeah, I would say that to myself. This is again a place where I would need someone who knows birth, can see what's going on beyond the checks and taking me out to make a test. But you can see through my body, through my breath, who has been with me through the journey and knows exactly what is going on inside me. Not through the journey, but in the journey, because I'm the one going through it, yet having someone with me who can really be there and knows, yeah, means what I do in birth, that at that moment I was birthing. In any case, yeah, I kept going, and there was this moment where a midwife came and said, "Would you like to use the shower?" And the shower felt good because, oh, I forgot to say this. When I first entered the clinic and then the baby turned, I went into the bathtub and it felt so good. And I remember that was one beautiful moment I had. I said to myself, please remind me that I said that. I said to the people that this moment is so perfect. It feels so good that I don't really care where I am. Because it felt so relieved to get this hot water on me and that the baby turned, and yeah, it felt really good. Yeah. But anyway, the shower in the room was really small. So I was trying to find a comfortable position in there, but I couldn't. And then the midwife said, "Do you want to use the bowl in there?" Because I was standing. I couldn't stand myself. I couldn't hold myself standing anymore. So yeah, I said the bowl doesn't fit, and like somehow she brought another thing and put it in there, and the whole room got flooded, and there was water coming out of the shower, and I just get stuck, couldn't fit in there with my huge belly and that thing, and that just totally took me out, and I feel like I wasted energy doing something that was not in the flow. Of course, water felt good, and of course, like she wanted to help, but that moment have if it was in the beginning, maybe it wouldn't have impacted me so much, but that being at that stage where any energy left had to be used for holding myself together, yeah, it was not very good. It took me it took me a lot to come back to myself. And then I went to the ball again, and everybody was away apart from my partner. And I remember said, open the window or close the window, something like that. And he went to do that. And then the wave came. So I needed him to put counter pressure. And I said it really like, no, 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 pressure. And he was like, okay. It felt like he kind of lost it as well. And in that moment is like I realized I need to ask for help. I don't know if it felt because if it was because I felt that everybody's breaking down and not breaking down, but like I felt like I lost him. I lost my back, my support. Well, he was still there, obviously, but like that emotional feeling of him not being okay maybe also added to my energy losing, let's say. And then, yeah, and then I said to him, I will ask for support. So the moment I thought of it, there was a doctor passing outside the room. And that was another confirmation for me because I haven't seen him until since the beginning that I went to the clinic. So for like 1.5 days, I've not seen him. And he came when I thought I needed something. So he came and he said, I said, I need support. And he's like, look, you're not in established labor yet. And I'm like, I'm thinking inside me, what the fuck? I've been birthing for 3 days. 3 days I had contractions every 4 minutes, and he's telling me I'm not in established labor. He just came in. Like, how does he know? And I feel like that's another point where I felt I was so strong in knowing that I'm not going to let anybody's words tell me what I am and where I am and how my birth looks like because I know how it feels. And that's the reality that is right for me. I'm in birth. Telling a woman that has been birthing for 3 days that she's not in like an established birth, it's a crime. Anyways, I didn't take that in. I can see how other women could take it in, and this makes me angry because it's not supporting the emotionality of birth that is very important. It doesn't make me so angry. It's like kind of laugh about it now, but I had a lot of anger about these points before, like a year ago. Anyway, I asked him, he said, do you want to sweep? And I said, my body said, no, I don't want to sweep, which is like through a vaginal examination, they just sweep the cervix, separating the membranes and stimulating birth. So it felt like I was already in such a limit of my capacity to hold it that if I had any more intensity right now, I don't think I don't, it just felt not right in my body. So I said no. And he said, and I said, what about prostaglandins? No, sorry, what about like pethidine, intravenous opioids, basically? And he said, that goes to the baby. So I said, no, I'll have an epidural. Only if the specific anesthesiologist, which is like my relative, is at the clinic. I had no idea what day was, no time it was, nothing. I knew she sometimes works there, but I called her and she was there. I somehow feel I trusted her, but I wouldn't because epidural was not even an option for me, for my reality. It was not even there in my reality. Even in my birth classes, I say, oh yeah, there's an option of epidural, but I didn't even go in it. Like I was thinking inside of me subconsciously, who would want to do that? No. So it was so far from my reality. But I needed something. I needed support. I felt, yeah, I felt like I remember closing my eyes, and usually when I close my eyes and I ask for support or I see things, I see what's going to happen, or I see a sign or something. So I was not seeing anything, it was just black. And so I was like visualizing forcefully my pelvis to open. I was like, open, open, it's opening. But I was making it, I was not receiving it. This doesn't mean that I would not have been able to do it. But with this specific scenario of where I was, the time that I've been birthing, the capacity of my nervous system, this what was I was who was there with me, everything, the whole scenario that was there for me in that moment, this is what felt right for me, the epidural. So here we go, another spank on my ego. It was. And there was another point where the instinctual part of me and the intuition was saying, go this way. So I went. I surrendered completely, and it was not a passive surrender. It was active surrender. I knew I was choosing that, including the vaginal examination beforehand, which again, it would be something I would never, ever, ever, ever consider having in my birth. But I had it because he needed to see what stage I was in order to administer the epidural. So yeah, there I was, getting ready for that. I remember a moment where they said, just put this gown on. And I'm like, I'm not putting a hospital gown. Like, I want to feel like a queen when I'm birthing, not the hospital gown. I'm not sick. So I just like put my nice gown and made it down floor, the ground floor. And I had the epidural. I chose to have this like test dose of a walking epidural. I felt how it felt in my spine. And interestingly, the point that the epidural goes on the spine, on the dural of the spine, is the exact point that I was asking people to press on. So tells me how magical our bodies are, and beyond the understanding of the mind, it's just what they are. They're just so magical. They're just, we know. So I was there with the epidural, and in that moment, I felt, oh my God, I was tensing. I don't know for how many hours before this moment. I was tensing. I was not able, because of the intensity and the time that I was in that intensity, to relax into the pain, into it, relax into the sensation and let my body open. I was not capable. I felt like I was contracting instead of opening. So, taking the circumstances, the epidural helped me to relax and open. I could feel the contractions coming and going. I could still feel the intensity, but not as much. So it gave me the break that I actually needed. And yeah, I was still able to follow my body and take whatever position I wanted, even though I was wired in that moment, even though it looked like, like I had the drip on, I had my baby being monitored, and I was in bed. I took a few breaths resting and just really sleeping, which I really, really needed. I remember that. I needed that. So even though it looked like, if you take a snapshot, it looked nothing like how I planned to birth in that moment, it kind of showed me that it's not always about the picture that I have. It's how it feels. If my surrender to what is coming from a place of connection and not passivity. So something beautiful happened at that moment. My mother came. and she brought me a rose. This was the only possibility that my mom could be at my birth. She didn't give birth vaginally herself. She had 3 C-sections, and she could not see me in that process of birthing because she didn't go through it herself. So she said she could not stand seeing me. But with the epidural and how I was able to be with a little bit of less intensity in that moment, she came and she gave me a rose. And I remember thinking, visualizing how I wanted roses in my breath. And here we go. I had a rose and I had my mom, which was itself a very, very powerful pollen experience to see me going through birth. And yeah, I just like kept going. And at one point, the sac comes out intact and the waters were tinted. So my baby pooped inside. And that was the moment where people were alarmed. But inside me, I felt that everything was okay. I didn't need the machine to tell me that my baby was okay. I just knew it. So that moment where the life is at the gate, like the vaginal canal is so open and the baby is like literally almost there. I felt so widely open beyond anything in my life. I saw people, and through them, I could see all their thoughts or all their emotions. I saw everything. My instinct was so open. I could hear behind the closed doors, which is not always a very good thing because I heard everything. But seeing that fear in people's eyes made me want to protect the bubble of love that I wanted to bring my baby into. So, well, for me, there was no doubt that he was okay. Like, you know, I had the medical practitioners coming in and saying, like, literally listing me all the medical textbook. Da, 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 if this happens, this will happen, and if your baby breathes that, and that's where all my preparation came handy. All the power that I needed to know, and my inner knowing that my baby was okay. That was there. That was intact. So nothing that was outside of me could tell me otherwise. So I was like, maybe we need to take the baby away. Maybe it was like, we'll see. And it felt I was literally holding a sword and fighting, not it wasn't fighting, defending this um bubble of love, my fortress. The fortress that I saw in that moment is inside of me, is built with me and my partner that is there. So I felt like held by the people that I chose to be there with me. I felt that I said yes to epidural. Um, so by saying yes to that, I said yes to some things that were, having been stripped like that. But I wouldn't say yes, not moving the way I wanted. So I moved the way I wanted. I sat on my all fours, put my leg on the side, and I was there holding this very mirror that I have right here with me. I wanted to see what was going on in my vagina. My mom gave me that. She had it in her bag. And I was like, I need a mirror. Someone give me a mirror. And she gave me that. So I had that there and I was looking the whole way. So when the sack came out, everybody was scared. Something inside me decided to break the water. So I did. So I just like literally with my finger, just like pulled the membrane and broke the water, the sack. The waters came out and the breath was kept going. And I remember this so many people coming around me and feeling so protected, but also at the same time, not from the people, from the internal part of myself. At the same time, really wondering, like, what are they doing? Don't they see I'm birthing? It felt that I know exactly what I'm doing, and everything else seemed ridiculous, literally ridiculous and unnecessary. I felt mistrusted. I felt these people work with birth, and of course, they're doing the best they're trained to do. But I felt like they didn't trust the woman birthing. Or perhaps there are not so many women that give themselves the possibility of accessing their deep knowing, deep trust, their deep instinct and intuition, that we give this power away to others to do it for us. And those others that do it for us would do it the best way that they can in the way they know. And this is exactly what I didn't want for my baby or me. So eventually I saw the head coming and I reached my fingers and touched his head. And this felt like nothing I ever experienced before. My baby that I knew without touch, now I touch him. And it gave me so much power. I felt this deep connection to him. Oh my God. And I felt like in that moment, I just really needed to protect this whole energy that was passing through me, the life. I had to fight with the midwives not to touch my perineum and not to touch my baby's head. This was so important for me. Do not touch my baby's head, not just for the, you know, biological thing, neurological thing that, I'm the only person he knows. I don't want strangers to touch him. This will be shocking for him. And then other complications can take place that perhaps wouldn't otherwise be there, most probably wouldn't otherwise be there. But because we're in a medical environment, we're then rescued by. So when someone touches the newborn baby, like not born yet, from inside a woman's body with these strange gloves and energy and neurological imprint, then it can be shocking for the baby. And it can disturb the breathing process, or like it can force the baby to take a breath out of shock, and it can cause problems. And then, of course, we're saved by the medical practitioners. But would that danger be there if that didn't happen? So, anyway, that was the preparation I was doing the whole time during my pregnancy. So, I just didn't want anybody to touch him. I'm just very sad I had to fight for it. And he's not a given for women. It's not a given for trusting the instinctual and protecting the instinct of the mother. Because when a woman has someone there trying to help her, then her instinct is not 100% taking over because there's someone else to take that load. So yeah, I had to fight for that. My partner also, and the people who were there were also like making sure that my needs were met. But inside of me, I had to protect and fight, which was not exactly what I dreamt. But at least I had my baby's needs met, not to be touched by strangers. I saw the head, then with another breath, the head came out. And with another breath, the body came out right in between my legs. I just took him to my chest and lied back. I, again, there was like literally held him on my chest, and I was pushing away all the hands that wanted to touch him, because this is the thing when the baby's coming. It's like everybody wants to touch him to make sure he's okay, but I knew he was okay. And yeah, I don't blame anybody because this is what they know how to do, and I obviously consent to be there. But again, if I had me there as a doula, or if I had someone there to support me in a different way than the medical support, which was the only support that I could get when I needed something, I would say maybe in that moment, Steph, you are perhaps in a transition. You are at your edge. You don't have much longer to go. Keep going. I would perhaps tell me not to squeeze my body or guide me into a relaxation, like something. And still, if I wanted an epidural, I would get it. Yeah, I feel like my biggest lesson in this birth, apart from the surrendering deeper than I ever did and being shaped through the journey for patience, endurance, that makes me exactly this journey made me the mother of my baby and gave me the qualities that I need to bring him up. I really believe this. Or gave me a really good start at least. The lesson that gave me is how important having the right support is. Like I wish I had. We call it a doula. There others call this a birth keeper. Like whatever term you want to use. It doesn't matter. Like I don't like to dogmatize and create clusters of dogma. But what I like to do is to define what it means for me to have support or what it means for someone to receive support. And the support I would have liked to have is someone who is spiritually connected, obviously clicks with me, and who also knows about birth so that it can give me a hand when I need one and if I need one. So, yeah, this was my birth. This was the powerful birth that I experienced, and it's been teaching me because, the integration process was so important. Haven't I had the space and given myself the space to digest all this, I would not have been able to see the lessons. So I'm so grateful for that. Um, yeah, the deepest surrender of my life so far, to surrender the idea of how I want to birth my baby and yet see now that I actually had the powerful birth that I wanted because I had what he needed. So it took 3 days and something to birth him. 3 whole days. Wow. And I am reborn from that with more patience, more ability to accept and let go of how I think things not should be, how I think, how I want things, and at the same time protect what is sacred to me. And I'm grateful for everybody that's been there and support my process. Last thing is that I faced a lot of guilt and shame because of the dogma around free birth and what makes birth powerful. So I got hooked with that, and that's why I felt disappointed. And that is somehow less when you are choosing something else, because a part of me did choose to go to the clinic. I needed support. Some women say, like, no, you're the one who chose that as a scenario. And I agree. But perhaps if my baby was coming in a position where it was supportive, my birth wouldn't have taken so long and I would not have needed to go. But this is what was it. This what how it was. And a year later, this being is keep pushing me to surrender beyond my vision. I want him to have a smash cake because I imagine him smashing it and I think this is good for him. But no, he didn't. He just like took the matches box and ran away on his birthday party. So yeah, this seems to be a theme for me. So thank you, Arion, for that. I guess, yeah, this birth gave me gifts that I did not know I was thirsty for. And in a totally unexpected way that, ah, yeah, keeps surprising me. And that's it. I feel a closure here. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope that my story will inspire you, and see you next time.